Good afternoon. I'm Briggs LaSavage. Thanks for joining us. New details at noon as investigators say a Superior police officer shot 2 people while responding to a call last night. It happened around 6:30 last night near 5th Avenue East and East 7th Street, right near Superior Central Park. This morning, the Wisconsin Department of Criminal Justice said 2 police officers were responding to a call of a person with a knife who was inside a home with another adult. When those officers arrived, they found the person holding the knife, and at some point, one officer fired their weapon, hitting both the person with the knife and the other adult. They were both taken to the hospital and are still being treated as of this morning. However, we don't have an update on their conditions at this point. As for the officer involved, authorities did not share any more information about what exactly led up to them firing, but they say no officers were hurt, and the one who fired their weapon is being put on administrative leave. The Wisconsin DOJ is investigating. They will eventually turn over their findings to the Douglas County District Attorney, who will decide if that shooting was justified. Well, this is now the 3rd officer-involved shooting in Superior in the last 5 months. The first happened in December when Dylan Wallace was allegedly intoxicated and shot a Superior police officer during a traffic stop. He then barricaded himself inside the middle school. His attempted murder case is moving toward a trial now, and he'll be due back in court next month. The officer was hurt but survived. Then in early April, a Superior officer fired a deadly shot during an altercation with a man. 42-year-old David Menton died, and Officer Ibrahim Carson was put on leave. That incident is still under review by the Wisconsin Department of Justice, and eventually they'll turn over their findings to the Douglas County DA, who will again decide if that shooting was justified.